Good day, students and learners, and welcome to Eko Learners Support for WAEC and NECO candidates. Today, we'll go through the topic in economics, the topic of elasticity of demand. Under the theory of demand, elasticity is a very important concept. Demand itself, the law of demand itself, talks about the relationship between changes in quantity or quantities demanded when price change. However, the degree to which demand changes when price fluctuates differ from commodity to commodity. And this gives rise to the study of the elasticity or degree of responsiveness in changes of quantity demanded to changes in price. The objectives of this session include the ability to explain elasticity of demand, to be able to mention and explain the types of elasticity of demand, to be able to explain the price elasticity of demand itself, to state and explain the types of price elasticity of demand, and to be able to calculate the coefficient of price elasticity of demand. It is expected also that previous knowledge should include the understanding of demand and factors affecting demand. Now, the elasticity of demand, the word first, let's go to the word elasticity, is from elastic. Elastic means how much of responsiveness. For instance, if you look at a rubber band and you pull it, by how much can it go before it returns? How elastic is it? And that is the basis for the understanding of the elasticity of demand. So elasticity of demand is essentially the degree of responsiveness of demand to little changes in the quantity, in the price of a commodity. The degree, note that demand is about quantity, so responsiveness to quantity demanded to price changes. When there's a little change in price, by how much does quantity demanded change? It measures the extent to which the quantity of a commodity demanded by consumers changes as a result of little change in the price of that commodity. Types of elasticity of demand include price elasticity of demand, which is responsiveness to price, which we just talked about, the extent to which demand responds to changes in price. Income elasticity of demand talks about the extent to which demand responds to the income of the consumer. Because aside from price, income is another factor to which demand responds to. So, even if a consumer intends to buy more of a product as a result of change in price, the income can be a constraint. Therefore, you have income elasticity of demand. And then you can also have cross elasticity of demand in cases where the price of one product can affect the quantity demanded of another product. That is cross elasticity of demand. For example, if products are complements, meaning you use them together. So if the price of one changes, then the quantity demanded of the other can be impacted. So if the price of petrol, for instance, skyrockets, people may buy less of cars because this products are used together. And then price elasticity of demand is also can be measured using the coefficient of price elasticity. And price elasticity of demand, as we have seen, is defined as the degree of responsiveness of demand to little changes in price. And the coefficient is determined as the ratio or percentage of change in quantity demanded to change in price. Essentially, there are 4 types of elasticities. And these types of elasticities, of course, are determined by the extent or degree of responsiveness of demand to change in price. For elastic demand, a little change in price leads to a more than proportionate change in quantity demanded. So, to explain elastic demand, let us assume a scenario where the price of a commodity called P1, for instance, is 10 naira. And the price of this same commodity increases marginally, say from price 1 to price 2, and becomes 20 naira. However, at price P1, the quantity demanded of that commodity Q1 is 20 units of the commodity. But as a result of this change in price from 10 to 20 naira, for example, there is a significant change in quantity demanded from 20 to 100. We say the demand or the demand is elastic. There is elastic demand because a change in price or a small change in price leads to a more than proportionate change in quantity demanded of that product. And this can be represented graphically so that we see the shape of the demand curve for an elastic demand, where price P1, P2 changes to P2 or increases to P2, but quantity demanded as a result of, quantity demanded as a result of increase in price. Let's go back to the law of demand. When price increases, quantity demanded will fall. Price increases, quantity demanded falls. For elastic demand, a little increase in the price of the commodity leads to a more than proportionate change or decrease in quantity demanded. Therefore, at P1, quantity demanded is Q1, and at P2, quantity demanded reduces to Q2, and the shape of the graph follows this curve, which is a gently sloping curve to indicate elastic demand. In the case of inelastic demand, we have almost the opposite, where a small change in price is responded to by a less than proportionate change in quantity demanded. In other words, in the case of price increasing from 10 naira to 20 naira, what we see is that the quantity demanded reduces from 20 to, for example, 22. So we say the demand for that product is inelastic. So we arrive at our elastic demand curve. So this is elastic demand and the coefficient of elasticity E is greater than 1. Now, we go to inelastic demand. For inelastic demand, a small change in price leads to a less than proportionate change in quantity demanded. So let us use the same price change that we used earlier on for elastic demand. Therefore, if we have our P1 now of bread as 100 and our P2 of bread as 250, remember our Q1 for bread was 10 units or 10 loaves per week. In the case of inelastic, our Q2 will be something far greater than 3 because the change in price leads to a less than proportionate or not so noticeable a change in quantity demanded. So our Q2 will be 7. And if we represented this on a demand graph, price, quantity, and we have 100 P1, which is P1, and 250 as P2, then at 100, 10 units was consumed, and that's Q1. At 250, there's no much change, or there's a less than proportionate change, and then our P2 is now 7, sorry, Q2 is now 7. So we have Q2 as 7. So we have a very steep demand curve where elasticity is inelastic. And the coefficient of elasticity is less than 1. For unitary elasticity, the change in price leads to a proportionate change in quantity demanded, meaning that the percentage change in price is the same as the percentage change in quantity demanded. So in unity elasticity, what you have is that the coefficient of elasticity is actually equal to 1. For the change in price is the same as the change in quantity demanded. Therefore, you have, if we are to represent that also on a graph, what we'll have will be something like this. Price price 1, 100, again price 2, 250, quantity 10, that's for Q2, Q2, quantity Q2, 10, so Q2, 10. So the ratio in the change in price is the same as the ratio in change in quantity. So what we have is Q, this is Q1, this is Q1, Q1, and then Q2 is equal to, say, 5, for example. So for unity elasticity represented on the demand curve, what you have is this. So you have 50, you have 100, you have 100 as P1 and 250 as P2, 250. As P2, and then this is 10, and then you have this as 5. Therefore, you have this as your demand, where elasticity is unitary and coefficient of elasticity is equal to 1. For perfectly elastic demand at a price, that the demand is infinitely responsive to price, meaning that at a given price, you can buy an infinite quantity. Okay? So what you have is that price is perfectly elastic. So the graph for a perfectly elastic demand is where you have your price as 1 and then your quantity is infinite. So it means that price is static, and then at that static price you can buy an infinite number or quantity of the product, perfectly elastic. And then finally you have perfectly inelastic, which is a variant of this, and that says that quantity does not respond at all to an infinite change in price. Irrespective of continuous change in price, is the same quantity that is purchased. So you have different array of prices, and then so this is perfectly inelastic demand. So we therefore have perfectly inelastic demand. So, having talked about the different types of price elasticities, we now want to look at how we can measure elasticity of demand. And the elasticity of demand is calculated using the coefficient of price elasticity of demand. And the formula is given as the percentage change in quantity demanded of the commodity divided by the percentage change in the price of the commodity. In other words, the coefficient of elasticity of price elasticity of demand is the ratio of the percentage change in quantity demanded to the percentage change in quantity demanded. Change is represented by the capital letter delta, and QD is quantity demanded, while P is price. We therefore break it down by taking each of the lines one after the other. So the first line, the percentage change in quantity demanded, is determined by the formula old quantity minus new quantity over old quantity and expressed as a percentage, which is why we multiply it by 100. And the percentage change in price is also determined by old price minus the new price over the old price and also expressed as a percentage, which is why we multiply that by 100 as well. So we use this as an example to explain the determination or the measurement of elasticity of demand using the coefficient of price elasticity. So we have a case where a product price reduced from 90 naira to 80 naira and the quantity demanded increased from 50 to 60 units following the law of demand. And the question we are asked here is to calculate the coefficient of elasticity of demand. Remember that the coefficient of elasticity of demand is the ratio of the percentage change in quantity demanded to the percentage change in price. So we take, first we deal with the change in quantity demanded, having identified the parameters. Old price is 90 naira, the new price, because it reduced from 90 to 80. So the old price was 90, the new price is 80. And then the price reduction, or the difference in the price reduction, is 10 naira. And going by the formula we saw, 10 over 90 multiplied by 100 is 11%. That old price minus new price divided by old price, expressed as a percentage. And then quantity also says old quantity, which is 50, it increased from 50 to 60. So old quantity 50, new quantity 60. Therefore, the difference is negative 10 or minus 10, and the ratio is minus 10 over 50, 100, which is 20%. And then the formula says the percentage change in quantity demanded. So the percentage change in quantity demanded is 20 divided by the percentage change in price, which is 11.1%. And the coefficient of elasticity or demand elasticity is 1.8. Now, going by our definition of the types of elasticity, the question can then ask, what kind of elasticity is this? Remember, we have the elasticity that is greater than 1, we have the one that is less than 1, we have the one that is equal to 1, and then we have the infinite. Having arrived at the coefficient of elasticity of demand as 1.8, a further question could then ask, what kind of elasticity or what type of elasticity is this? And to answer that question, we go back to the information we had previously, which told us that when elasticity, or when the coefficient of elasticity is greater than 1, demand is elastic. ED is greater than 1. When it is inelastic, we saw that ED is less than 1. And when it is unitary, we saw that ED is equal to 1. Therefore, in this case, the elasticity for this product is elastic.
Acing your WAEC and NECO examinations has been made easy by the Lagos State Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education with the Eko Learners Support for WAEC and NECO Candidates television program. Join seasoned teachers as they take you through these core subjects, targeting the exact syllabus of WAEC and NECO. Watch Eko Learners Support for WAEC and NECO candidates through these social media platforms to access more educational content and give their feedback. Eko Learners Support for WAEC and NECO candidates. Pass your examinations with flying colors.
So welcome back. I am sure that if you have actually paid attention to this class, you would have been able to give the right answers to all of these questions, and very easily too. So what is elasticity of demand? It asks us to define it. Elasticity of demand is simply the degree of responsiveness of demand to a little change in price. In other words, it is to what extent the quantity demanded of a commodity will respond when there is a change in the price of that commodity. The 4 types of elasticity, of price elasticity of demand include 1. Elastic demand, 2. Inelastic demand, 3. Unity or unitary elastic demand, and 4. Perfectly elastic demand. In the third question, we are asked to determine 1. The coefficient of price elasticity for a commodity whose demand, or for a commodity bread, whose price increased from 400 naira to 800 naira, and the quantity bought per week by a consumer decreased from 1,600 loaves to 800 loaves. The first thing we need to do is to bring out the parameters in the question. And the parameters are the prices and quantities. So let us take the old price. The old price was 400 naira. The old price, 400 naira. Okay. New price, the price increased from 400 naira, actually doubled to 800 naira, and quantities changed because the demand for bread has some degree of elasticity, and which the extent of that elasticity is what we are set to determine. So quantity changed from old quantity of 1,600 units to a new quantity of 800 units. Now, recall that to determine coefficient of price elasticity, it is simply percentage change in quantity demanded divided by the percentage change in price, all multiplied by 100. And percentage change in quantity demanded is old quantity minus the new quantity minus the new quantity minus the new quantity divided by the old quantity, all multiplied by 100, and then the change in price. The change in price is old price minus new price all over old price multiplied by 100. So old quantity 1,600. The old quantity is 1,600, and the new quantity is 800 over 1,600 multiplied by 100 gives us 800 all over 1,600 multiplied by 100, and this is 1 over 2 times 100, which is 50. And then the old price is 400 minus the new price, which is 800, divided by the old price, which is 400, multiplied by 100. And this is equal to minus 400 over 400. And that gives us minus 1. So, minus 1. That's times 100, sorry. That's minus 100% times 100. That gives us minus 100%. But the elasticity of demand is percentage change in quantity demanded, which is 50, all over percentage change in price, which is 100. 1 over 2, which is the same thing as 0.5. And from what we know, 0.5 is less than 1. Therefore, minus 0.5 from here, because of this minus that we had here. So here is minus. So from what we know, minus 0.5, of course, is less than 1. Therefore, based on our knowledge of the types of elasticities of demand, when elasticity or the coefficient of elasticity is less than 1, demand is said to be inelastic because it is less than 1. So if you have been able to answer the questions in this way, then you have done justice to it. And so we have come to the end of this session. Thank you for listening. If you have suggestions, observations, or feedback, you can reach us on our social media handles that will be shown on the screen. Thank you.